The night was quiet on Kepler 7b. Too quiet. Sergeant Tiho Kang stood at the edge of the military outpost and looked up at the stars. He was 28 years old, a combat medic who had seen too much war and too much death. His black hair was cut short, and there was a small scar on his left cheek from a battle he tried to forget. The frontier moon was a lonely place. Dense jungles covered most of the surface, and strange creatures howled in the darkness. Tiho and his squad of 12 soldiers were stationed here to watch for enemy activity. It was boring work, but Tiho did not mind. After years of fighting, boring was good. He was about to return to his quarters when his communicator beeped. Private Jimin rushed toward him, her face pale with worry. "Sergeant, we detected something," she said. "An unregistered vessel just entered the atmosphere. It is falling fast." Tiho frowned. "What kind of vessel?" "Velari design, sir." That made Tiho pause. The Velari were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had silver-blue skin, luminous eyes, and technology far beyond anything humans possessed. But they wanted nothing to do with humanity. They kept to themselves, and any human who entered their space without permission simply disappeared. "Where will it crash?" Tiho asked. 3 kilometers east, deep in the jungle." Tiho thought for a moment. Protocol said he should report this to command and wait for orders. But something in his gut told him there was no time for that. If there were survivors, they would not last long in that jungle. "I am going to investigate," he said. Jimin grabbed his arm. "Sir, that is against protocol, and it could be a trap. The Velari do not come here, ever." "Then why is one of their ships crashing on our moon?" Tiho pulled his arm free gently. "Stay here. Keep the squad ready. If I do not return by dawn, report everything to command." Before she could argue more, Tiho grabbed his rifle, his medkit, and disappeared into the jungle. The jungle of Kepler 7b was not a friendly place. The trees grew so thick that moonlight barely reached the ground. Strange plants glowed with soft blue light, and insects the size of his fist buzzed around his head. Tiho moved carefully, his training keeping him silent despite the difficult terrain. He found the crash site after 2 hours of walking. The Velari ship had torn a long scar through the jungle. Trees were broken and burning. Metal pieces were scattered everywhere. The main body of the vessel had split in half, smoke rising from its wounds. Tiho approached slowly, his rifle ready. He expected to find Velari soldiers. He expected danger. What he found made his heart stop. Bodies, at least 6 Velari guards lay dead around a small escape pod. Their elegant armor was torn apart by weapons fire. This was not a crash. This was an attack. Someone had shot this ship down and then killed the survivors. But the escape pod was still sealed. Tiho moved toward it, stepping over the bodies carefully. He found the release mechanism and pulled. The door hissed open, and he raised his rifle, ready for anything. 2 children stared back at him. They were Velari girls, small and terrified. Their silver-blue skin was covered in dust and blood. The older one looked about 10 years old in human terms. She had long silver hair and fierce violet eyes. She held a piece of broken metal like a weapon and placed herself between Tiho and the younger girl. The younger one was maybe 8. She had softer features and her hair was white like fresh snow. She was crying silently, and Tiho could see that her arm was badly injured. Blood soaked through her torn clothing. "Stay back," the older girl screamed in broken common, the trade language of the galaxy. "I will kill you." Tiho did not move. He looked at these 2 children, alone and afraid, surrounded by death. He thought of his own sister, who had died in the war when she was only 12. He thought of how scared she must have been at the end. Slowly, very slowly, Tiho lowered his rifle. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He knelt down, placed his weapon on the ground, and removed his helmet. "I am not going to hurt you," he said softly. His voice was calm and gentle. "My name is Tiho. I am a medic. Your sister is hurt. Please let me help her." The older girl did not move. Her violet eyes searched his face, looking for lies, looking for danger. She had probably been taught that humans were primitive and dangerous. She had probably never spoken to one before tonight. "How do I know you will not hurt us?" she demanded. Tiho met her eyes. "You do not know, you cannot know. But your sister is bleeding badly, and if she does not get help soon, she will die. I have medicine that can save her. I am asking you to trust me just for a little while." For a long moment, nothing happened. The jungle sounds filled the silence. Smoke rose from the burning wreckage. The younger girl whimpered in pain. Then slowly, the older girl lowered her weapon. Tears fell from her eyes, but her voice stayed strong. "If you hurt her, I will find a way to kill you. I swear it." Tiho nodded seriously. "I understand." He moved forward carefully and knelt beside the younger girl. Up close, he could see that her wound was deep. A piece of metal had cut into her arm, and she had lost a lot of blood. He opened his medkit and got to work. "What is your name?" he asked the younger girl as he cleaned her wound. "Hana," she whispered. "That is a beautiful name. In my language it means flower." He smiled at her. "This will hurt a little, Hana, but I need you to be brave. Can you do that for me?" Hana nodded, her violet eyes wide but trusting. As Tiho worked, the older girl watched his every move. Her body was tense, ready to attack if he made any wrong motion. But as she watched him treat her sister with such gentle care, something in her expression changed. "My name is Yura," she said quietly. Tiho looked up at her and smiled. "Hello, Yura. You were very brave protecting your sister like that. She is lucky to have you." For the first time, Yura's tough expression cracked just a little. She was still a child, after all. A scared child who had just lost everyone she knew. By the time Tiho finished bandaging Hana's arm, the first light of dawn was touching the sky. He knew he should contact his squad. He knew he should report what he had found. But something told him that these children were in danger, and not just from the crash. Someone had attacked their ship. Someone had killed their guards, and that someone might still be looking for them. "Can you walk?" he asked Hana. She nodded weakly. Tiho helped her stand, then looked at Yura. "We need to move. This place is not safe. I will take you back to my outpost. You will be protected there." Yura hesitated. Everything she had been taught told her not to trust this human, but everything she had seen tonight told her that he was her only hope. "Okay," she said finally, "we will go with you." Tiho did not know it yet, but he had just changed the course of history. The two frightened children he had saved were not ordinary Velari. They were princesses, daughters of Queen Sauron, ruler of the entire Velari Empire. And the people who wanted them dead were already on their way. They never made it to the outpost. Tiho was leading Yura and Hana through the jungle when his communicator crackled with static. Then came the screaming, gunfire, explosions, and then nothing but silence. He tried calling back, "Jimin, Jimin, respond," but there was no answer, only dead air. Yura grabbed his arm, her violet eyes were wide with fear. "They found us," she whispered. "The Crimson Dawn, they found us." "Who is the Crimson Dawn?" Tiho asked. "Bad people," Hana said softly. "They want to hurt Mother, they want to hurt us." Tiho looked back toward where the outpost stood. Smoke was rising above the trees. His squad, his friends, the people he had served with for 2 years, were they all dead, because of him, because he had brought these children back? No, there was no time for guilt. Not now. If the attackers had hit the outpost, they would soon come searching the jungle. He needed to move. "Listen to me," he said to the girls, kneeling down to meet their eyes. "I will not let anything happen to you. Do you understand? But you need to do exactly what I say. No questions, no arguing. Can you do that?" Both girls nodded. "Good, let us go." What followed were the 7 hardest days of Tiho's life. The Crimson Dawn were not ordinary enemies. They were Velari soldiers who had turned against their queen. They wanted to overthrow the royal family and take control of the empire. Killing the princesses would break the queen's spirit and show that no one was safe from their reach. They had brought hunters to Kepler 7b, elite assassins with cloaking technology that made them nearly invisible. Tiho had fought many enemies in his life, but he had never fought anything like this. On the first day, he nearly died. He was leading the girls through a narrow valley when the air in front of him shimmered. He threw himself to the ground just as a blade cut through the space where his neck had been. The assassin became visible for half a second, a tall Velari in black armor, and Tiho fired his rifle on instinct. The shot hit the assassin in the chest, and he fell. Yura and Hana screamed. "Run!" Tiho shouted. He grabbed Hana and threw her over his shoulder. "Yura, hold my belt and do not let go." They ran. Behind them more shapes shimmered in the air, more assassins. Tiho did not know how they survived that first day. He remembered running, fighting, hiding in a cave while rain poured outside. He remembered Hana crying against his chest and Yura sitting in silence, her small hands shaking. That night he checked their supplies. 1 rifle, 40 rounds, a medkit that was already half empty, some food bars and 2 bottles of water. It was not enough. It was nowhere near enough. "Are we going to die?" Yura asked quietly. Tiho looked at her. In the dim light of the cave she looked so young, so tired, but there was steel in her eyes, a strength that refused to break. "No," he said firmly. "We are not going to die, I promise you." On the second day, Tiho began teaching Yura how to survive. He showed her how to set simple traps using vines and rocks. He taught her which plants were safe to eat and which would make her sick. He explained how to read tracks in the mud and how to move without making sound. Yura learned fast. She was smart and determined, and she wanted to protect her little sister. Within 2 days, she was setting traps better than some soldiers Tiho had trained. "You are good at this," Tiho told her. "I have to be," she said simply. "Hana needs me." Hana was not doing well. Her wound had started to get infected despite Tiho's best efforts. She developed a fever and became too weak to walk on her own. Tiho carried her on his back, mile after mile, through jungle that seemed to have no end. At night, he would tell them stories to keep their spirits up. He told them about Earth, a planet with blue oceans and green mountains. He told them about snow, which amazed them because Velari did not have cold weather. He told them about his mother, who made the best noodle soup in his village. "Do you have a family?" Hana asked one night, her voice weak with fever. Tiho was silent for a moment. "I had a sister," he said. "Her name was Minji. She was about your age when she died." "What happened to her?" "There was a war. Bad people attacked our home. I was away fighting and I could not protect her." Tiho's voice was steady, but his hands tightened into fists. "I have never forgiven myself for that." Hana reached out and touched his hand with her small fingers. "It was not your fault," she said softly. "You cannot be everywhere. You cannot save everyone." Tiho stared at this little alien girl who was speaking wisdom beyond her years. For a moment, he did not see Hana. He saw Minji, smiling at him the way she used to before everything fell apart. "Thank you," he whispered. On the 5th day, they almost got caught. The assassins had tracked them to a river. Tiho could see them moving through the trees on the other side, their cloaking devices flickering in the morning light. There were at least 10 of them, too many to fight. "Into the water," he whispered to the girls. "We swim downstream. Stay close to me." The river was cold and fast. Hana was too weak to swim, so Tiho held her against his chest with one arm while paddling with the other. Yura swam beside him, her teeth clenched against the cold. They floated for hours, letting the current carry them away from danger. When they finally climbed out, they were miles away from the assassins, but they were also exhausted, hungry, and nearly frozen. That night Hana's fever got worse. She started talking to people who were not there. She called for her mother. She cried for her father, who Tiho learned had died 3 years ago. She needs real medicine, Yura said. Tears were running down her face. Please, she is going to die. Tiho looked at the little girl in his arms. Her silver-blue skin had turned pale and her breathing was shallow. He had no medicine left, no food, no shelter. The assassins were still hunting them. Everything seemed hopeless. But Tiho had made a promise, and he never broke his promises. I will find medicine, he said. I saw a crashed supply ship 2 days ago. There might be something useful there. Stay hidden. I will be back before morning. No, Yura grabbed his arm. Do not leave us. Tiho took her hands gently. Yura, listen to me. If I do not go, your sister will die. I need you to be strong. I need you to protect her while I am gone. Can you do that? Yura wanted to argue. She wanted to scream that she was just a child, that this was too much, that she was scared. But she looked at Hana, her little sister who had always followed her everywhere, who had always trusted her completely. Okay, she said, but you have to come back, promise me. I promise. Tiho left them in a hidden cave and ran through the jungle in the darkness. He found the crashed ship and searched through the wreckage. There was no medicine, but he found something else, a working distress beacon. He did not activate it. The Crimson Dawn would detect it instantly, but he kept it. Maybe, if things got desperate enough, it would be their only hope. He returned to the cave just as the sun was rising. Yura was sitting at the entrance with a sharp rock in her hand, ready to fight anyone who came close. When she saw Tiho, she burst into tears and hugged him. I thought you were not coming back, she sobbed. Tiho held her tightly. I will always come back, he said. I promised, remember. He did not find medicine that night, but he found something else in the wreckage. A thermal blanket, clean bandages, a water purifier. These small things helped them survive another day. On the 7th day, Tiho knew they could not run anymore. Hana was dying, Yura was exhausted, and the assassins were closing in. He made a decision. He activated the distress beacon. What are you doing? Yura asked. Calling for help, Tiho said. The Crimson Dawn will see it, but so will anyone else in this system. It is a risk, but it is our only chance. Yura stared at the blinking beacon. Then she looked at her dying sister. Then she looked at the human soldier who had carried them through hell for 7 days. Okay, she said. I trust you, Tiho, I trust you. They held hands and waited for whatever would come next. The sky burned with fire. Tiho watched as dozens of ships broke through the clouds. They were not the small, dark vessels of the Crimson Dawn. These were warships, massive, beautiful. Their silver hulls reflected the light of the setting sun like mirrors. The symbol of the Velari Empire was painted on their sides in brilliant gold. Mother, Yura whispered. She stood up, her tired eyes suddenly alive with hope. Mother came. The largest ship descended first. It was bigger than anything Tiho had ever seen, a floating palace of metal and light. Smaller ships surrounded it like guards protecting a queen. Which Tiho realized was exactly what they were doing. The ship landed in a clearing half a kilometer away. Tiho could hear the Crimson Dawn assassins screaming as the Imperial forces found them. Gunfire echoed through the jungle. Explosions shook the ground. But the battle did not last long. Within minutes, silence returned. Then came the soldiers. They emerged from the trees like ghosts, dozens of them, hundreds. They wore white and gold armor that seemed to glow in the fading light. Their weapons were aimed at Tiho. He slowly raised his hands. I am not your enemy, he said calmly. The children are safe. I protected them. Tiho, Yura grabbed his sleeve. Let me talk to them. Before he could stop her, she stepped forward and shouted something in the Velari language. The soldiers immediately lowered their weapons. Some of them dropped to one knee. Of course, Tiho thought, they recognized their princess. More soldiers came. They surrounded Tiho and the girls, forming a protective circle. A medical team rushed to Hana and began treating her with technology Tiho could not understand. Within seconds, her fever was gone. Within minutes, she was sitting up and asking for water. Hana looked around with confused eyes. What is happening? Where are we? It is okay, little sister. Yura hugged her tightly. We are safe now, Mother is here. The soldiers parted like waves before a ship, and there she was. Queen Saren was the most beautiful woman Tiho had ever seen. She was tall and elegant, with silver hair that fell past her waist like liquid moonlight. Her eyes were the same violet as her daughter's, but deeper, older, filled with wisdom and sorrow and power. She wore a gown of white silk that seemed to float around her as she walked. But it was not her beauty that struck Tiho. It was the look in her eyes when she saw her children. All the power, all the majesty, all the cold control that a queen must have. It all disappeared in an instant. What remained was simply a mother who had thought she lost everything. My bobbies, she whispered. Yura and Hana ran to her. The queen fell to her knees and caught them in her arms. She held them so tightly, as if she was afraid they would disappear if she let go. Tears streamed down her face. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the soldiers looked away, giving their queen this private moment of relief and joy. Finally, the queen pulled back and looked at her daughters. She touched their faces, their hair, their hands, making sure they were real. I thought you were dead, she said, her voice breaking. When the ship went down, when we found the wreckage and the bodies, I thought I had lost you forever. We almost died, Mother, Yura said, but he saved us. She pointed at Tiho. The human soldier, he saved us. The queen's eyes turned to Tiho for the first time. He saw her take in his appearance, his torn uniform, his bruised face, his hands covered in dirt and blood. He looked like a wild animal compared to the elegant Velari around him. She stood slowly, her daughters still holding her hands. She walked toward him and her soldiers moved aside. When she stopped in front of him, they were only an arm's length apart. You are the one who protected my children, she asked. Her voice was calm now, controlled, the voice of a queen addressing a stranger. Yes, your majesty. Tiho did not bow or kneel. He did not know Velari customs and he was too tired to care. I found them at the crash site. I could not leave them there. You are human, she said. It was not a question. I am. Our species have no alliance, no treaties, no friendship. My children were strangers to you. You had no reason to help them. Tiho met her eyes directly. With respect, your majesty, I did not need a reason. They were children, they were hurt, they were scared. Where I come from, that is reason enough. Something flickered in the queen's eyes. Surprise, curiosity, he could not tell. Tell me everything, she commanded. And Tiho did. He told her about finding the crash site, about the dead guards, about Hana's wound and Yura's bravery. He told her about the 7 days in the jungle, the assassins, the hunger, the fear. He told her about carrying Hana on his back, about teaching Yura to set traps, about the nights they spent huddled together for warmth. He told her everything except one thing. He did not mention his squad. He did not mention that his friends had probably died because the Crimson Dawn came looking for the princesses. That pain was his to carry alone. When he finished, the queen was silent for a long time. Her daughters had moved to stand beside her, each holding one of her hands. He was kind to us, Mother, Hana said softly. He called me brave. He told us stories about Earth. He said my name means flower in his language. He taught me how to survive, Yura added. And he never hurt us, not once, even when we were scared of him, even when I threatened to kill him. The queen looked at her daughters, then back at Tiho. Her expression was unreadable. You carried my youngest child through enemy territory for 7 days, she said slowly. You protected my heir with your own body. You asked for nothing in return, not money, not power, not even safety for yourself. I was just doing what was right, Tiho said. No, the queen shook her head. You were doing what was extraordinary, what was impossible, what no one in my own empire would have done for a stranger. She stepped closer. Then, to Tiho's complete shock, she lowered herself to her knees. She bent forward until her forehead touched the ground at his feet. The soldiers gasped. Some of them cried out in protest. A queen did not kneel to anyone. A queen definitely did not kneel to a human. But Queen Soren stayed down. This is the Velari gesture of deepest gratitude, she said, her voice muffled against the ground. It has not been given to a non-Velari in over 1,000 years, but you have earned it, 1,000 times over. You saved my children. You saved my heart. You saved everything I have to live for. She raised her head and looked up at him. For the first time, Tiho saw not a queen, but a woman, a mother, a person who had felt the same fear and love and desperation that all parents feel when their children are in danger. Name your reward, human, she said. Anything within my power to give, I will give. This I swear on my crown, my blood, and my soul. Tiho stood frozen. He did not know what to say. He had not done this for a reward. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. Because when he looked at Yura and Hana, he saw his own sister. Because somewhere in the universe, maybe someone had been kind to Minji in her final moments, and he wanted to believe that kindness like that still existed. Please, Your Majesty, he said, reaching down to help her stand. Please get up. I do not need a reward. I did what any good person would do. Queen Soren allowed him to help her to her feet, but she did not let go of his hand. You may not want a reward, she said softly, but I cannot let this debt go unpaid. It is not our way. A kindness of this magnitude must be returned, or the universe falls out of balance. She squeezed his hand gently. Come with us to the capital, rest, heal. Let us take care of you as you took care of my children, and when you are ready, we will talk about the future. Tiho looked at Yura and Hana. They were both smiling at him, their eyes full of warmth and hope. Please, Tiho, Hana asked, please come with us. And how could he possibly say no to that face? Okay, he said, I will come. As he walked toward the massive ship, the princesses holding his hands on either side, Tiho could not shake the feeling that his life had just changed forever. He was a simple soldier from Earth. He did not belong in palaces or among royalty. But as Hana leaned her head against his arm and Yura smiled up at him with trust in her eyes, he thought that maybe, just maybe, he could learn. The imperial palace was like a dream made real. Tiho had seen many things in his years as a soldier. He had seen planets covered in ice and planets covered in fire. He had seen cities built in clouds and cities built under oceans, but nothing had prepared him for the home of the Velari Queen. The palace floated above the capital city, held in the air by technology that looked like magic. Its walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft light. Gardens filled with flowers he had no names for stretched as far as he could see. Waterfalls fell upward instead of down, and tiny creatures with wings like starlight flew everywhere. It is beautiful, Tiho whispered. It is home, Hana said happily. She had recovered completely from her fever, thanks to Velari medicine. Now she ran ahead of them through the halls, pointing at everything she wanted to show him. That is where Mother holds court. That is where Yura and I study. Oh, and that is where they make the best sweet cakes in the whole empire. You have to try them, Tiho. He smiled at her energy. It was hard to believe that just a few days ago she had been dying in his arms. Tiho was given a room in the royal quarters. It was bigger than his entire childhood home. The bed could fit 10 people, and the bathtub was more like a small pool. Servants brought him new clothes made of fabric softer than anything he had ever touched. This is too much, he told Yura, who had insisted on showing him around herself. I am just a soldier. I do not need all this. You saved our lives, Yura said simply. This is the least we can do. She had changed since they had arrived at the palace. She was still fierce and protective, but the fear in her eyes was gone. She stood taller now, more confident. She was remembering that she was a princess. But she still looked at Tiho with warmth and trust. She still called him by his name instead of his title. She still sat beside him at meals and asked him questions about Earth and humans and everything else she wanted to know. "Can you teach me more combat moves?" she asked one evening. "The ones you showed me in the jungle." "Should a princess not learn from the royal combat masters?" Tiho asked. "They are boring, and they never let me do the really dangerous stuff." She grinned at him. "You let me use real knives." Tiho laughed. "That was because we were being hunted by assassins. Your mother might not approve of me teaching you knife fighting in the palace." "I will talk to her," Yura said confidently. "She will say yes. She says yes to everything I ask for now." Her voice got quieter. "I think she is scared to say no, scared that we will disappear again." Tiho understood that fear. He saw it in the queen's eyes every time she looked at her daughters, the fear of loss, the fear that happiness was temporary. He knew that fear well. The days passed in peace. Tiho's wounds healed. He ate food he could not pronounce and slept better than he had in years. The princesses visited him every day, and he found himself looking forward to their time together. Hana liked to sit in his lap and ask him to tell stories about Earth. Her favorite was the one about the ocean, the great blue water that covered most of his planet. She could not believe that anything could be so big. Yura preferred action. She made him spar with her, show her how to move silently, teach her the tricks he had learned in the military. She was a fast learner with a sharp mind, and Tiho thought that one day she would make a great leader. Sometimes the queen joined them. She would sit in the corner of the room and watch, a small smile on her face. She did not speak much, but her presence was always felt, powerful, elegant, lonely. Tiho noticed that she was always surrounded by guards, servants, advisors, but never friends, never family except her daughters. He wondered what it was like to be a queen, to have everything except the simple joy of human connection. On the fifth night, a servant came to Tiho's room. "Her Majesty requests your presence in her private chambers," the servant said with a bow. Tiho's heart beat faster. He did not know why. He followed the servant through winding hallways until they reached a simple door without guards or decoration. "She is waiting inside," the servant said and left. Tiho knocked. "Enter," said the queen's voice. He stepped inside and found himself in a room that was nothing like the rest of the palace. No crystal walls, no glowing lights, just simple furniture, warm colors, and bookshelves filled with old paper books. It looked almost like a room on Earth. Queen Sorin was sitting by a window looking out at the night sky. She had changed from her royal gown into a simple dress. Her silver hair was loose around her shoulders. Without her crown and her guards, she looked younger, softer. "Please sit," she said without turning around. Tiho sat in a chair across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I have been watching you," the queen finally said. "These past 5 days, I have seen how you interact with my daughters, how you treat my servants, how you carry yourself." "I hope I have not caused any offense," Tiho said carefully. "The opposite." She turned to face him. "You have amazed me. You are nothing like what I expected a human to be." "What did you expect?" "Crude, violent, selfish." She smiled slightly. "Our species has never been close. We have heard stories about humans, about your wars, your greed, your destruction. I thought you were all monsters." "Some of us are," Tiho admitted, "but some of us try to be better." "Yes," the queen nodded. "I can see that now." She stood and walked toward him. Her steps were graceful, measured, like everything she did. When she stopped in front of him, Tiho had to tilt his head up to meet her eyes. "I told you that I must repay my debt to you," she said. "I have thought about this for 5 days. I have considered every possible reward, and I have made my decision." Tiho waited. "I offer you 3 choices," the queen said. "Each one is worthy of what you have done for me." She held up one finger. "First, wealth beyond measure. I will give you enough gold and treasure to buy your own planet. You can live as a king for the rest of your life, wanting for nothing." Tiho shook his head slowly. "I have never cared about money." The queen nodded as if she expected that answer. She held up a second finger. "Second, power. I will make you a general in the Velari military. You will command a fleet of warships. You will have authority that most beings in the galaxy can only dream of." "I am tired of war," Tiho said quietly. "I have seen enough death to last 100 lifetimes." Again the queen nodded. This time something flickered in her eyes. Was it hope, fear? He could not tell. She held up a third finger. Her voice was softer now, barely above a whisper. "Third, my hand in marriage. You would become king of the Velari Empire. You would rule beside me, and you would become the adoptive father of Yura and Hana." Tiho stopped breathing. "What?" he managed to say. The queen moved even closer. She was so close now that he could smell her perfume, like flowers after rain. "My daughters already love you," she said. "They speak of nothing but you. They want you to stay. They want you to be part of our family." She paused. "And I find that I do not want you to leave either." Tiho's mind was spinning. This could not be real. He was a simple soldier from Earth. She was the queen of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. This did not happen. This could not happen. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "I am honored, but this is too much. We barely know each other. Marriage is not something that should be given as a reward." "I know." The queen looked away. For a moment she looked not like a ruler but like a woman who had been alone for too long. "My husband died 5 years ago. Since then I have ruled alone. I have been strong because I had to be. But I am tired, Tiho, tired of being alone, tired of having no one to share my burdens with." She looked back at him. "I am not offering you marriage as a reward. I am offering it as an invitation, a chance for both of us." The room was silent. Outside, stars sparkled in the endless dark of space. Inside, 2 people from 2 different worlds stood at the edge of something neither of them had expected. "I do not know what to say," Tiho admitted. "Then do not say anything tonight." The queen stepped back, giving him space. "Think about it. Take as long as you need. Whatever you decide, I will respect it. And whatever you decide, you will always be welcome here." She walked to the door and opened it. "Good night, Tiho Kang of Earth," she said softly. "May the stars guide your heart." And she was gone. Tiho sat alone in the quiet room, staring at the night sky. His mind was full of questions. His heart was full of confusion. But underneath it all there was something else. Something warm, something hopeful. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a future that was not filled with war and loss and loneliness. He did not sleep that night. Tiho walked alone through the palace gardens, as the twin moons of the Velari homeworld rose in the sky. He had not slept. He had not eaten. He had spent the entire night and the following day thinking about the queen's offer. 3 choices, each one impossible in its own way. Wealth that could buy worlds, power that could command armies, love that could change the course of history. And all he had to do was say yes. But Tiho had never been good at taking the easy path. He thought about his life, 28 years of struggle and loss, his parents who died when he was young, his sister Minji who was taken from him by war, his friends in the military who fell one by one until he was the only one left. He had spent so long fighting, so long surviving, that he had forgotten what it meant to live. And then he thought about the past 2 weeks, finding Yura and Hana in the wreckage, carrying them through the jungle, telling them stories about Earth while they huddled together for warmth. The way Hana smiled when she saw him, the way Yura trusted him with her life. He thought about Queen Sorin, her strength, her loneliness, the The way her mask fell away when she looked at her daughters. The way she had knelt before him and touched her forehead to the ground, the most powerful woman in the galaxy, humbling herself before a human soldier. She had offered him everything, but what did he really want? Tiho stopped walking and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there was everything he had known, but Earth had nothing left for him. No family, no home, no reason to return. Here in this strange palace floating in the clouds, he had found something unexpected. He had found people who needed him, people who cared about him, people who made him feel like he mattered, not as a soldier or a weapon, but as a person. Was that not worth more than gold or power, or anything else the universe could offer? The next morning, Tiho asked to see the queen. She received him in her throne room, surrounded by advisors and guards. She was wearing her crown again, her royal gown, her mask of cool authority. But when she saw him, something flickered in her eyes. "Leave us," she commanded. The room emptied within seconds. Soon it was just the two of them in that vast, beautiful space. "You have made your decision," the queen said. "It was not a question." "I have." Tiho walked toward her until he was standing at the base of her throne. "May I speak freely?" "Always." He took a deep breath. "I do not want your wealth. Gold and treasure mean nothing to me. I have seen too many people destroy themselves chasing money. It brings no happiness, only more wanting." The queen nodded slowly. "And the position of general?" "I am tired of war," Tiho said. "I have killed too many people. I have lost too many friends. If I never hold a weapon again, I will be grateful. I do not want to command armies. I want peace." "Then you refuse both offers." The queen's voice was steady, but he could see her hands tighten on the arms of her throne. "Yes," Tiho said, "and I also refuse your third offer." The queen's face did not change, but something in her eyes dimmed, like a candle being blown out. "I see," she said quietly. "I understand. You are free to leave whenever you wish. I will provide a ship to take you wherever you want to go." "Your Majesty," Tiho took another step forward, "please let me finish." She looked at him with confusion. "I refuse your offer of marriage," he said slowly, "because I will not marry you as a reward. I will not become your king because I saved your daughters. That is not what marriage should be. It should not be payment for a debt." "Then what are you saying?" the queen whispered. Tiho climbed the steps to her throne. He stopped in front of her and looked into her violet eyes. "I am saying that if you want me to stay, I will stay. Not as a king, not as a reward, but as someone who wants to be here. Someone who wants to be part of your family." He paused. "If you are asking me to stand beside you, not because you owe me, but because you want me there, then my answer is yes." The queen stared at him. Her mask was gone now. All that remained was hope and fear and longing. "I do not understand," she said. "I will stay," Tiho said gently. "I will be a father to your daughters because they have already taken a piece of my heart. I will learn your ways, your language, your customs. I will earn my place here, not have it given to me." He reached out and took her hand. She did not pull away. "And if one day, after you have seen who I really am, you still want me as your partner, as your equal, then ask me again. Ask me because you love me, not because you owe me. And I promise you my answer will be yes." For a long moment the queen said nothing. She looked at their joined hands, then back at his face. A single tear slid down her cheek. "You are the strangest human I have ever met," she said. "I try my best." And then, for the first time since he had known her, Queen Sorin laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and bright and full of joy. She stood from her throne and faced him. "Then stay, Tiho Kang of Earth," she said, "and let us see what the stars have written for us." 3 years passed. They were the happiest years of Tiho's life. He learned the Velari language until he could speak it perfectly. He learned their customs, their history, their beliefs. He trained with their warriors not to fight but to understand. He studied their politics, their economy, their culture. And through it all, he was father to two wonderful girls. Yura grew into a fierce young woman. She was now 13, training to be a diplomat and a warrior. She still asked Tiho to spar with her, and she could almost beat him now. Almost. Hana remained sweet and kind. She was 11 and loved art and music. She painted pictures of her family and hung them all over the palace. Her favorite subject was Tiho, standing between her and Yura, all three of them smiling. And the queen, Soren, he could call her by her name now. Over time, she had opened up to him like a flower turning toward the sun. She shared her fears, her dreams, her burdens, and he shared his. They became partners in everything, equals who supported each other through good times and bad. On the anniversary of the day they met, she asked him again. They were standing on a balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons were full, casting silver light over everything. Yura and Hana were asleep inside after a long day of celebration. Tiho, Soren said softly. He looked at her. She was as beautiful as the first time he had seen her, maybe more so now that he knew her heart. Yes. She took his hands in hers. 3 years ago, I offered you my hand because I owed you a debt. You refused, and you were right to refuse. Soren, let me finish. She smiled at him. Tonight I am asking again, not because of debt, not because of duty, but because I love you, because you have made my life complete, because I cannot imagine a future without you in it. She squeezed his hands. Will you marry me, Tiho Kang? Not as a reward, but as my partner, my equal, and my love. Tiho looked at this incredible woman. He thought about everything they had been through. The pain and the joy, the fear and the hope, the journey that had brought them here to this moment under these stars. Yes, he said, 1,000 times yes. When they kissed, the city below erupted in cheers. Somehow people had found out. Somehow they were watching. And somehow they were happy. The wedding took place a month later. It was the largest celebration in Velari history. Billions watched as a human soldier became king of an alien empire. But for Tiho, the ceremony itself did not matter. What mattered was the look on Yura's face when he officially adopted her as his daughter. What mattered was Hana crying happy tears and hugging him so tight he could barely breathe. What mattered was Soren's hand in his as they made their vows. At the reception, a young reporter asked him how it felt to become the most powerful human in the galaxy. Tiho thought about the question. He looked at his wife, his queen, who was laughing at something Hana said. He looked at Yura, who was trying to act mature but could not stop smiling. I am not powerful, he said finally. I am just a man who found a family when he thought he had lost everything. That is worth more than all the power in the universe. The reporter did not understand, but Tiho did not care. 1 year later, he stood beside Soren at the signing of the first Human-Velari Alliance Treaty. It was a historic moment. Two species that had never trusted each other, coming together as friends. The diplomats asked Queen Soren why she had chosen to end centuries of isolation. She looked at Tiho, then back at the assembly. Because one man showed me that strength is not only found in power, she said. It is found in kindness, in compassion, in the simple act of helping a stranger. Humans and Velari have much to learn from each other. Let this be the first step toward a brighter future. Under the table, Tiho felt her hand slip into his. He squeezed it gently. Outside the windows, stars stretched across the endless darkness of space. Somewhere out there were dangers and challenges they could not yet imagine, but together they would face them. Tiho thought about the scared young soldier he had been, alone on a frontier moon, going to investigate a crashed ship. He thought about the choice he had made that night, the choice to help instead of walk away. That single choice had changed everything. He smiled and looked at his family, his wife, his daughters, his home. Some people spend their whole lives searching for happiness. Tiho had found his in the most unexpected place, in the eyes of two frightened children and the heart of a lonely queen. And he would spend the rest of his life making sure they knew how much he loved them. The stars had written their story, and it was beautiful.